So it's time for a special edition of the Tactics Meeting podcast, the show where we talk to subject matter experts about response tactics and technology. And today I have with me Suzanne Lagoni, principal at Nexus Northwest, and Ty Keltner, the public information officer for the Washington State Department of Ecology, to talk about the revised JIC and Liaison Manual for the Northwest Area Contingency Plan. Suzanne, welcome to the program, or back.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a while since I was with you. It was one of the first ones, well over a year ago now. And I guess I just want to take a second to thank you for persevering with the tactics meeting. You've had some wonderful programs, and I just started yesterday listening to the one with Jim Butler, one of my longtime personal friends and colleagues up in Kenai in Alaska, probably the father of liaison officers, and it's a great program. I really am enjoying it a lot. So thank you for continuing with the tactics meeting.
Thank you, Suzanne. And Ty, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks to you to finally having me on. I've always wanted to be on the program. All of the staff here at Ecology has taken their turns, and now I get mine too. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, sometimes I think I am the Washington State Department of Ecology, but there's a lot of good stuff coming out of there, and this is one of them. With Jim, I worked with him a couple of months ago in Alaska during the Genius Star 11 response, where he was the liaison officer, and that was the spark for the episode we did with Jim. And watching his work with messaging, with communicating with the residents and elected officials for Dutch Harbor and the island of Unalaska was really impressive. And I think this change that's been made to the JIC and Liaison Manual for the Northwest Area Contingency Plan is a real big step forward in helping people do this communication. All right, when I came into oil spill response as a responder and then as a manager, and I was so focused on the equipment and the on-water tactics, and it wasn't until much later did I learn that how important this messaging is, that oil spill response, really all emergency responses, are won and lost in the JIC and the liaison office, right?
Mm-hmm, no
and
doubt.
I'm so excited that so much new work has gone into helping provide this guidance. And I think I'll start with Suzanne, since you were one of the principal team members in this rewrite. Can you tell us what the JIC and Liaison Manual for the area plan is, and why it's important, and why it went through the refresh that it did over the last 12 months?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. Thanks so much, Dan. And for our listeners and our viewers, I'm going to share that just before we started this podcast, I mentioned that I found, I think, the first JIC manual for the Northwest area, and it was written in 1993. We didn't have a lot about social media in that particular version, and it's 15 pages long. So and there was no liaison manual. Government affairs kind of tucked in to a category in the Joint Information Center. We've come a long way since 1993. And I saw a lot of changes occurring around 2000. That's when I joined up with the task force that has over the years worked on this and other public affairs issues in the Northwest. And I think, and Ty, you may remember better than I do, this may be the third big revision that we've done in the last 25 years to the manual. And it just gets better every time. I'm particularly proud and happy with the way that both manuals open today, because we all worked on it, a couple of paragraphs that set an expectation in writing in the manuals that JIC and Liaison will be joined at the hip and there will be a cooperative and collaborative process that we go through that I think not only helps us be more efficient, helps us better tell the story of the response, but does it in a way that we are going to be assured we've got consistency of message, because we all know that it's real easy for liaison to have a certain set of information that they give out to their interested parties, and the JIC has another one, and we've got to make sure, particularly in this world of fast communication and social media, that we're all saying the same thing and that we all have good information. So we set that expectation in the very opening introduction of both manuals. And then throughout the manuals, we get more specific about how we're going to do that. We have enhanced those opening hours, and it could be 12, could be 24 hours. Ty and I have worked with you, Dan, on the beginning communication of several pretty difficult episodes that we've had in our region with a couple of ship fires. And I know, Ty, you've got something going on up north right now. Those opening hours before we all get together and start sipping coffee in a hotel room in a joint information center, those opening hours have got to be more productive. And so the manuals are geared toward that too. We talk more about those first hours and how we communicate with one another, that we have a virtual and kind of an unofficial JIC in those opening hours. And we face up to that. I think that there was a time when if you don't have that JIC, if you don't have that unified command, then you can't be saying anything because nobody can approve it. So we've jumped that hurdle. And to me, that collaboration and that recognition that communication starts about 30 seconds after the incident happens. And so for me, that's what's important about both these manuals. And Ty, I'll toss it to you for your view on some of those things and how it's being implemented now in the new draft manuals.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Suzanne. So, there was a time where incidents would happen and we would hear about them and call each other and say, okay, where are we gathering? What are we doing? And we would get together and then we would move to come together physically. We do some writing, talk about the response, send something out, respond to media inquiries. And that was all pretty standard. But nowadays, people are hearing about incidents much sooner than they ever have before, thanks to the increase in information flow of today's world. Folks will hear about an incident on social media in mere moments after it occurs. And so we need to be on the ball, handling information flow from the very, very start. And you're right, that coordination is very important in those early minutes of a response.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that I've called you, I've called our federal partners, either the Coast Guard or the EPA. I've called other agencies too and said, this is the situation. How are you doing? What are we doing over here? All right, I'm going to do this. You're going to do that. Okay. And we coordinate and get those messages out as quickly as we can. And, nowadays you'll arrive on scene and the media is already there because they've
Yes,
already
they are.
heard it. They know about it. And then boom, press conference is happening right away. So
Yeah, it's a brave new world.
Yeah.
Brave new world out there. Well, I know, Ty, we both worked a lot on the JIC manual, less so on the liaison manual. But one of the things that you and your group did was really look at those templates that have been languishing, I would say, a bit in the back of the previous versions of the manual. What do you see as some of the real outstanding improvements in the appendix of this manual?
Yeah, there's a few really important changes. I think the modernization is the biggest one. I looked at some of those old templates and I thought, would I say this today? I don't think I would. Let me rephrase that. And so in working with our counterparts in other states and the other agencies, we kind of modernized that language and rephrased things into a way that we're more accustomed with today. And we also made sure to insert some key points earlier into our documents that go out. So we know we're going to get a claims number. We know we have a wildlife hotline, and those things can be plug and play messages in templates. And if the response is going that way, then let's put those messages in there. And
Mhm.
so by default, now we have that information, which is really, really handy. Another aspect is just the formatting. The formatting of the documents was horrible. I don't think there's a program today that would understand what it was. So we modernized that. And another few changes is actually the things that we got rid of out of old versions. We at one time had an entire press release dedicated to establishing a hotline that people could call. You know, that's not really necessary anymore. That's more like a line in a larger release with other information. And same for um, getting out some information on wildlife. You know, we have other information that we use now and have used that is more successful in that way. So it's those changes that are very, very important.
Well, and I think the other thing, getting back to the way we started our conversation, is that the manual now really goes into more depth about how we do social media and how we set up a website, and that website is critically important. And we specifically mentioned the Jetty website, which is just about what everybody is using. I know Ecology is working constantly on getting good Jetty material, and that any of our social media is going to feed to that website. So we're finally recognizing that also, and giving some hints and ways to get that website up quickly, have it already populated with many fact sheets that we've gathered over the years. And there's no need to reinvent a fact sheet on skimming, for
Yes.
example. It hasn't changed a lot, and so we're working through it. We should say that a lot of this is volunteer effort. It's what you're doing after you've done your 60 hours of work for the Department of Ecology every week, and it's what Dan is doing in his copious spare time. And so there's a lot of volunteer above the job description work that a lot of people have put into this project, and it shows. We have some diverse perspectives, which is important. We have better recognition, I believe, in our tribal partners in both manuals, which is critically important in the areas that we work in. And I feel very good. I feel like we've got a good product, and that's what this, getting back to the workshop, that's going to be a part of the workshop. Dan, do you want to talk a little bit more about some of the other things we're going to do in the workshop?
Yeah, sure. So, this communications workshop, which will take place on April 3rd at Clean Rivers Cooperative in Portland, Oregon. It will also be available to participate online for those who don't want to travel down to Portland. We did this workshop 2 years ago in August, and we had people come from Canada and Idaho, and people came from all over, and we were really focused on uh, defining messaging, on the process of establishing that early JIC, and it was really well received by all of the communicators who participated. And so this year, with the new manual and the new templates available, we're doing it again. And the goal is to present this revised manual, get a number of experts to speak to the different sections, and then to provide an opportunity for breakout groups to use various templates to develop communication based on a response scenario that will be presented at the workshop. And I don't think there's really any better way to meet your fellow communicators in the Pacific Northwest, uh, put a face to a name that you might encounter during a response, and then really get a hands-on opportunity to use the manual, because it's all about the preparation, right? You may know the manual that exists, you may know the templates exist, but if you're trying to pull it off the website for the first time at 2 o'clock in the morning when the phone is ringing, you're not going to be as successful as you could have been. And so we put this workshop together. It's a collaborative effort between the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, the Washington Department of Ecology, the Tactics Meeting Podcast, the Washington State Maritime Cooperative, Nexus Northwest, and Clean Rivers Cooperative. So quite a group that's come together to do this. No one's getting paid for this. This is all extracurricular, right? In all of that.
It's because we love working together.
We love working together, but you know, when that ship catches on fire in Tacoma,
Boy,
that's how we make it go as smoothly as we can. It's not going to be smooth, but maybe it
no.
can be slightly smoother than the alternative,
Indeed, indeed.
which is not great. So, Suzanne, you've got the agenda that we've established.
I do. Let me just
Run
forgive me
through
for
that for the
rattling.
audience.
Yeah, we're going to start at 8:30 in the morning. As you said, we'll be at Clean Rivers and also virtual. So that I'm sure you're going to start a sound tech check at 8 so that people can make sure that everything is working for them. We'll spend some time going through both the manuals, and Scott Smith is going to join us from Oregon DEQ, and several of the people that work with me on the JIC manual, and we'll kind of go section by section. Again, we're going to focus quite a bit on wildlife in that review, because that is one of the most critical issues that we face in this area. Then we're going to look at some messaging for air monitoring and air quality. And that comes right on the heels of wildlife, of the kinds of questions we get given the sorts of responses that we do. So we're going to get into that just a bit. Then do some case studies, break out in groups. It's always a bit of a challenge, but I think we figured out a way that we can make the people who are virtual feel a part of how we're doing those breakout sessions. We're going to have a working lunch, and then Brandon Bertelson, I don't know him, Ty. I think he must be new with your group, but he is going to talk with us about working with our tribal partners and awareness that it's important for all of us to have when we're doing that kind of work. And then another set of breakout sessions to tackle a case study and come up with some messaging, and wrap it up by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So if I missed anything, please.
Well, I'm most excited about those case studies because I love going over old spills and looking at lessons learned. And then when you can compare a spill in one area to a spill in another area and how they were handled similarly or differently, even then, you know, that's a real learning opportunity for everybody. And, you know, there are those sticky points that we struggle with all the time.
Indeed.
How do we message air quality? How do we explain level of risk to people and health? How do we take care of wildlife messaging with this group and with this type of animal? You know, it's really a unique situation every time, and being able to gather with colleagues and talk about these things and teach these things is really, really important.
It is. And as you were mentioning earlier, Ty, one of the really valuable things about any of these workshops or any of these meetings or task forces that we have is that we recognize each other when the ball drops.
Yeah.
And that has not always been the case. We have not always been real good about that. And you and I have talked about that in the past. And Dan and I work literally all over the country and all over the world. Ty, you've been up in Alaska where things are done a bit differently. I think we do it as well, if not better, than any other place that I work these days. And that's taken some effort. And it's workshops like this that help us just keep moving that ball forward a little bit more and a little bit more. And and our challenge now is to try to bring some people up behind us. I think we talk about that a lot. So I am encouraging anyone who sees this and is interested in becoming a communicator in fields like this, please join us. Or those of you who have registered and you have colleagues that maybe never thought about doing this kind of communication work, get them registered and have them come to this workshop. And we've got some really bright and shiny young stars, but we need some more.
Yeah, we would love to meet anybody that wants to come, certainly. And
Yeah,
Suzanne, you're right. I mean, I know that when I walk into a response and Suzanne is there, she and I have worked together so many times. We're familiar with each other and we know how to work together, and we get things done just like that. And so building those relationships ahead of time through meet and greets, and especially through oil spill drills, very, very important.
very important.
This is another one of those cases where we can have new people come in and we can get to know them and get to see how they work and adjust to each other. And so then when the real deal happens, we can work together without any issues.
Yeah. And I think we saw that particularly that Kodiak Enterprise was a very difficult incident. And yeah, it wasn't. There was a lot of danger that could have occurred and didn't.
Yep.
But we were on top of that almost as soon as Dan and his crew were on top of it, and it shows in how our communities feel about what has occurred and what exists in their community to respond to it. I think we forget sometimes as communicators that yes, it's about getting the information out, but I always say when I do training that it's about honoring our communities that we function in. And the better we are, particularly in these difficult situations, the more we show that we do in fact honor the people who live there. And that is our primary concern. Always our first objective. So I'd love to have more people join us at the workshop and become involved in this kind of communication.
So to register, you can go to the Oil Spills 101 website, Department of Ecology. Just type in Oil Spill 101, it'll pop right up. There's a link there to register, and you can select whether you're going to be there in person or online. Either will be good. And I recommend not just communicators, but incident commander, leaders. I'm not a PIO. I am not a liaison officer. I am an incident commander, and I feel that it's my job to do whatever I can to make sure that we have the right communications team in place as soon as possible, and to understand the messaging enough that I can at least ask, hey, have we gone down this road? Have we gone down that road? And so I think it behooves incident commanders and other incident management team staff to join in and take an opportunity to get this kind of education.
Excellent.
Yeah.
With that, I want to thank Suzanne and Ty for your time today, and we'll get this out to people, so hopefully that they can register, and that's all the time we have.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, back to work.
This episode of the Tactics Meeting is brought to you by Easy 213. Easily manage resource requests and approvals during an incident or exercise. The Easy 213 application is available for web browsers, iPad OS, iOS, and it's available on the desktop. Manage multiple incidents, unlimited resource requests, digital signature capture, alerts when a new order has been placed. I've used it for 3 exercises and people love it. For more information, go to portagebay.com/easy213, and we thank them and Portage Bay for their support of the Tactics Meeting. Now let's get to this amazing episode.